Now, most of us have gone to school at one point in their lives or another, and of course, I myself am no exception to that rule. I've gone to school and I'm actually still going to school to this day. But when I was doing research for the video about the rape of Nanking or the Nanking Massacre of 1937, I came to a single question. That question was, why isn't this event in our history books? It is such a massive event of human history that it's not in our history books. I was actually quite surprised by that. I mean, 250 to 360,000 people who have met their end in an extremely horrific way, extremely inhumane. I thought that would, qualify to get into our history books. But it wasn't. So with that question, I went to my former high school to ask my history teacher this. Now, of course, if you want to set up such an important appointment, you need to have pretty good timing, and my timing was rather poor, if I say so myself, because the 4th graders from that school, so that's the last year on that school, they all had their exams, and of course all those exams had to be graded. Now, after my former history teacher, I'm not going to say his name regarding privacy, but after my former history teacher was finally done with grading those, it was about 1.5 to 2 weeks later, he said, "Hey Colin, we can receive you at the school. I would be rather happy to actually see you again, have a chat with you. And it would be truly amazing to, have a chat with that." So with high expectations, I of course went to my school and I had a chat with my former history teacher. We talked about a lot of subjects, of course, one of them being the Nanking Massacre, the rape of Nanking, the Indonesian uprising, the Korean War, World War II, or, the entirety of the Cold War era. And it was very interesting, and I had a lot of fun. And I'm still very thankful for him that he received me there. But after I was done there, I went back home and I thought, hey, didn't I still have books from my former high school? And I actually did. So I decided to go searching for those books, and when I looked at the books, I found my former history book. Now, of course, this is named Geschiedeniswerkplaats, so that's Dutch, of course, for history workplace. Rather interesting name, that's for sure. But that was my former history book, and I actually kept it. I think I actually should have returned it, but I forgot to return it. Nah, whatever, they didn't miss it anyway, so it's no big deal. But anyway, I was curious as to what was in the book, and I decided to actually read through it. Now, when I was done with high school, I thought I knew a lot about World War II, and quite honestly, I was wrong. Now, before we start off, I would like to say that in the Netherlands, we have 5 different forms of school. Now, all the way at the top, so that's for the people who did the best at their elementary school tests, elementary school exams, you have VWO, which is the highest, the smartest people go there. Then you have HAVO, then you have MAVO, then you have Kader, and then you have Basis. So that means that MAVO is like in the middle. So this is basically what every average person in the Netherlands should know. And that's all in this book, in this history book. Now, when I was reading through it, I was curious as to what was in it. Because obviously when I have such a book at home and I want to change something in a book, I actually want to read through it, what the contexts are. And I was left rather disappointed. And the reason why I say this, I'm going to take several examples, is because, for example, everyone knows that the war in Europe really started with the invasion of Poland. Now they begin off with the invasion of Poland, and then they skip through the invasion of Denmark and Norway. You think, okay, that should be alright, but the thing is, they only really mentioned that Denmark and Norway just were invaded. That's it. Oh, and then Denmark and Norway were invaded, and that's it. After that, they say then the Benelux, or at least the Netherlands and Belgium, they didn't even mention Luxembourg, that they fell to the Blitzkrieg, and the same for France. And the only country which actually got a date for their surrender was France. Well, not actually a date, they just said that they surrendered 6 weeks later. So that's not good. Now, after all of this, we skip immediately through Operation Barbarossa. we just completely ignore the invasion of Greece and Yugoslavia. It's not even mentioned. Not even a single sentence is saying, oh yeah, by the way, they are also invading Greece and Yugoslavia. Greece and Yugoslavia, of course, being a big part of World War II. Greece showing Italy how it's done. Italy having quite some issues with invading Greece. And, of course, the Yugoslavian resistance playing a good part in trying to hinder Germany throughout the entirety of World War II, but that's completely ignored. Now, after Operation Barbarossa, they go to Pearl Harbor, where they have made some mistakes, saying that a good chunk, or at least a big part of their fleet at Pearl Harbor was actually sunk to the bottom of the ocean, which also isn't entirely true. So it's not really going very well. Now, of course, you think, now here come several massive events in human history, especially for World War II. How could they fuck it up? They fuck it up by immediately going to D-Day. Now, of course, to their credit, they did talk about the Battle of Stalingrad, but then again, in a European school book, talking about the Battle of Stalingrad kinda is the bare minimum you have to have in a European school book about history. Now, the thing is, the attack on Pearl Harbor was on the 7th of December 1941, and the invasion of Normandy, or D-Day, was on the 6th of June 1944. Now, if I recall correctly, that is like a 2-year and a 7-month difference. And if you're only going to talk about one event in 2 years and 7 months of war, of course people in our current generation are not gonna know anything about World War II. I mean, you're skipping out on so many extremely important battles. Okay, for example, in that time period, you had the Second Battle of El Alamein, which turned the tide in Northern Africa. You had the Battle for the Pacific at Midway, which turned the tide at the Pacific. You have the Battle for Tunisia, where the Germans were kicked out of Africa. You have the invasion of Sicily. You have the invasion of Anzio, which wasn't in there. I haven't also read anything about the Battle of the Bulge, which still is like the last big offensive Germany did against the West. I know it's after D-Day, but they didn't mention it. And lastly, they didn't even talk about the Battle of Berlin. Like, guys, come on. So many people have made sacrifices for us, for our freedom, for your freedom maybe, and they're not even honoring it by actually putting it in a history book about Europe. It's crazy. I'm sorry. I started this journey by looking into the Nanking Massacre and me being surprised about the fact that there wasn't a lot of information and it wasn't even mentioned in my history book. But my friend, they don't mention anything in here except for Pearl Harbor, Operation Barbarossa, but not even the Battle of Leningrad either, which was one of the longest sieges, I think, in World War II. It was the longest siege in World War II. And it just kind of goes to show how good my history teachers were. I mean, I truly appreciate them for what they've done, because if they just had followed the book instead, if they would have just gone by the book, I wouldn't have known anything about World War II. Now, of course, this isn't to slander the book I used. Of course, not everything is going to be perfect. Some people make mistakes, we're all humans, and making mistakes in books, even though probably not that smart, it can happen, right? But the thing is my country is not the only one which has issues with their history books. I mean, I've looked at the German history books as well. One of my mates actually showed it to me, and he confirmed as well that their situation isn't that much better than mine. And one of my mates in Croatia actually said the same. So all in all, if any minister of education or one of the guys who makes these books sees this, please make sure that these books are actually, one, useful for people, and to honor the people who fought for our freedom. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, sub, and whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next video.